A racist woman called police on an 8-year-old genius. What happened next will shock you. Picture this. You're sitting in first class, minding your own business, when suddenly, chaos erupts around an 8-year-old boy. A woman is screaming that he doesn't belong there, demanding his arrest, and within minutes, police officers are putting handcuffs on a crying child. But here's the twist that nobody saw coming. This wasn't just any kid. What this racist woman discovered 5 minutes later would haunt her for the rest of her life. Let me tell you about little Marcus, an extraordinary 8-year-old who looked like any other well-dressed child boarding Flight 447 from Los Angeles to Boston, while other kids his age were playing games on their tablets. Marcus was quietly solving calculus problems that would make university professors scratch their heads. This wasn't some gifted student doing advanced homework. This was a certified mathematical prodigy whose abilities had stunned academics across the nation. Marcus wasn't traveling for vacation. He was the son of David Ashford, CEO of one of America's most powerful tech companies, heading to Boston to become the youngest person ever inducted into the Mathematics Hall of Fame. As he settled into Seat 1A, working on equations that would challenge PhD students, he had no idea his peaceful flight was about to become his worst nightmare. Now let me introduce you to Sarah Manning, a 45-year-old marketing manager who was about to make the biggest mistake of her entire existence. Sarah worked for the same tech company owned by Marcus's father, though she had no clue who the quiet boy in first class really was. Her career was crumbling. She'd just been demoted after terrible quarterly results, and this Boston conference was her last chance to save her job. But Sarah carried more than just professional desperation. She harbored deep racist beliefs about what she called the natural order of society. In her twisted mind, seeing a confident black child in first class was an affront to everything she believed. She carried 2 phones, her work phone, and an untraceable burner phone she kept for what she called emergencies. The confrontation began when Sarah marched over to Marcus like a predator stalking prey. "Excuse me, but you're in my seat. Move to the back where you belong," she demanded. Aggressively, Marcus politely showed her his boarding pass, explaining he was in the correct seat. But Sarah wasn't interested in facts. Her racist mind had already decided this black child didn't deserve to be there. "I don't care what that fake paper says," she screamed loud enough to make other passengers stare. "Children like you don't fly first class. I'm a business executive. I deserve this seat more than some random kid." The flight attendant, Maria, stepped in to defend Marcus, confirming his ticket was completely legitimate. But Sarah was just getting started. The racial attacks that followed were so vicious they're difficult to repeat. She demanded they check his credit card, his ID, claiming there was no way his family could afford first-class tickets, that they were probably stolen. Marcus began to tear up, not from anger, but from confusion and hurt. His small voice trembled as he tried to explain his father's assistant had bought his ticket for a math competition. But Sarah had already poisoned the minds of nearby passengers, planting seeds of doubt and suspicion. Other passengers began turning against the innocent child. An elderly businessman nodded in agreement, saying it seemed unusual for a child to be alone in first class. The mob mentality was taking hold, and Marcus was becoming increasingly isolated and terrified, realizing his skin color was being used as evidence against him. Here's where Sarah's evil plan reached its most disgusting point. She excused herself to the bathroom, pulling out that burner phone. In a moment of calculated cruelty that's hard to believe any adult could execute, she returned and pretended to stumble near Marcus, secretly slipping her phone deep into his backpack. Minutes later, Sarah began her Oscar-worthy performance, frantically searching for her missing phone, crying that it contained all her work contacts. Then she pointed directly at 80-year-old Marcus and declared he must have stolen it when he was moving around earlier. Marcus looked up from his math problems, completely confused and innocent. "Ma'am, I haven't touched anything of yours. I've been working on calculus problems this whole time." But the damage was done. Other passengers were now demanding he check his bag. With tears forming in his eyes, Marcus opened his backpack. Sarah's planted evidence tumbled out onto the airplane floor. The silence lasted exactly 2 seconds before Sarah erupted. "There it is. He stole my phone. I knew it." The passenger outrage was immediate and devastating. An entire airplane cabin had turned against an innocent child based on planted evidence and racial prejudice. This brilliant boy, who should have been celebrating his historic achievement, broke down completely, sobbing uncontrollably as his small voice pleaded through the tears. "I didn't take it, I promise. I don't know how it got there." The captain announced an emergency landing in Denver due to a serious security incident. Within minutes of landing, the plane was surrounded by emergency vehicles with flashing lights. Police officers boarded with hands hovering near their weapons, treating this like a high-stakes criminal situation rather than what it actually was, the systematic persecution of an innocent child. Despite Marcus being only 8 years old, barely tall enough to reach overhead compartments, police placed him in handcuffs designed for children. "You're under arrest for theft. the officer said coldly, reading Miranda rights to a sobbing child who weighed maybe 60 pounds. Marcus wasn't silent. Hyperventilating through his tears, his desperate voice cut through the cabin. I want my daddy. Please call my daddy. I didn't do anything wrong. The raw desperation in his voice should have broken every heart. But most passengers watched with satisfaction, believing justice was being served. Officer Thompson, perhaps moved by the sight of tiny wrists and handcuffs, agreed to call Marcus's father. With shaking hands, Marcus gave his father's number, memorized since he was 4 for exactly this kind of emergency. 20 minutes of agony followed. Marcus remained handcuffed, still crying softly, still trying to understand how his exciting trip had become a nightmare. Even in restraints, he continued, looking at his math worksheets because they were literally the only thing keeping him anchored to reality. Sarah was having the time of her life, walking around like a conquering hero, telling anyone who'd listen about how criminals start young and someone needed to stop this pattern before he became a real danger to society. But something extraordinary was happening behind the scenes. Phone calls were being made, not ordinary calls, but the kind that move mountains. Corporate security teams were being activated, legal departments mobilized, private jets fueled. Private jets fueled, the sound started as a distant rumble, growing louder. Black SUVs with tinted windows raced across the Denver tarmac at incredible speeds. These weren't ordinary vehicles, they were bulletproof, government-grade SUVs that only the most powerful people travel in. The man stepping out of the lead vehicle was about to turn this entire situation upside down in the most devastating way possible, while Sarah celebrated and passengers congratulated themselves. They had no idea they'd messed with the wrong family. When David Ashford stepped onto that airplane, the very air changed. At 6'2", impeccably dressed in a suit, worth more than most cars, he radiated power and barely contained fury. Behind him came corporate security personnel, lawyers carrying briefcases full of legal firepower, the most expensive professionals money could buy. His voice cut through the cabin like ice-cold steel. Officers, I'm David Ashford. That's my son you have in handcuffs. Sarah heard that name and her world began crumbling in real time. You could watch the color drain from her face as recognition dawned. Her mouth fell open, eyes wide with terror, voice barely a whisper. Wait, Mr. Ashford. Oh my God, She couldn't finish. The magnitude of what she'd done hit her like a freight train. The boy she'd tormented wasn't just any child, he was the son of her boss. Not just her supervisor, but the CEO, the owner, the man who could destroy her life with a single word. Other passengers gasped as they realized they'd been attacking the son of a billionaire. Their confidence evaporated as they understood the gravity of their mistake. But the bombshells were just beginning. The quiet man in seat 3C, who'd been silent throughout the ordeal, suddenly stood up. Marcus Stone reached into his jacket, pulling out federal credentials. Agent Marcus Stone, Federal Air Marshal, he announced with unmistakable authority. I've been observing this flight for security purposes, and I need to inform everyone that I witnessed a serious federal crime. The cabin fell into absolute silence. Stone looked directly at Sarah with a stare that could melt steel. Ma'am, I have video evidence of you planting that phone in this child's backpack. Sarah's face went from white to green. Her elaborate lie, her performance, the mob she'd created, all about to be exposed by an unimpeachable witness who'd recorded everything. Stone showed his phone, screen displaying crystal-clear footage of Sarah's accidental stumble. From his surveillance perspective, you could see her deliberately reach into Marcus's backpack, carefully plant the burner phone with calculated precision. Furthermore, Stone continued, this phone shows it was factory reset 3 days ago. No contacts, no personal data, no usage history. It's a throwaway device purchased specifically for this purpose. This wasn't spontaneous, this was premeditated fraud designed to frame an innocent child. Sarah's desperate protests fell on deaf ears as the technical evidence destroyed every aspect of her lie. David Ashford's voice boomed with authority. That made corporate executives tremble. Let me make sure everyone understands exactly what happened here. My son Marcus is a certified mathematics genius, the youngest person ever inducted into the Mathematics Hall of Fame. This brilliant, innocent child was traveling to receive that honor, and instead was traumatized and criminally framed by adults, who judged him solely on skin color. The revelation hit passengers like physical blows. They'd participated in persecuting a mathematical prodigy whose achievements surpassed anything most would accomplish in their lifetimes. This woman, Sarah Manning, works for my company. David continued with ice-cold fury. She racially profiled my son, then deliberately framed him for theft. She used a burner phone to manufacture evidence against a child, turning an entire cabin into accomplices to racist persecution. The corporate nuclear option was deployed. Miss Manning, you are terminated immediately. Not just fired, terminated with cause. No severance, no references, no possibility of future employment within our network. Our legal department will pursue maximum criminal charges for child endangerment, false police reports, and fraud. Sarah's career, reputation, and entire future were obliterated in seconds. The most powerful moment came when handcuffs were finally removed from Marcus's tiny wrists. David embraced his son with fierce protectiveness, his voice becoming soft and warm. "I'm so proud of how you handled yourself. You kept your dignity when everyone around you lost theirs." Marcus, finally safe in his father's arms, looked up with innocent eyes that had seen too much cruelty. "I just wanted to solve my math problems and go to Boston. Daddy, I don't understand why she hurt me." Those heartbreaking words captured the innocence that had been attacked, and the confusion that adult prejudice creates in young minds. Justice moved swiftly. Within hours, Sarah found herself in real handcuffs, facing multiple felony charges that would destroy her life forever. The irony was poetic. The woman who'd demanded an 8-year-old's arrest was now facing federal prison time. Stone's footage exploded across social media, going viral faster than anything in internet history. The hashtag justice for Marcus trended worldwide within hours, accumulating millions of outraged posts. Major news networks ran wall-to-wall coverage of what they called the most shocking case of racial profiling ever caught on camera. 3 days later, Marcus walked onto the Mathematics Hall of Fame stage in Boston, to a thunderous 5-minute standing ovation. When he spoke, his wisdom brought tears to every eye. "Some people judge you before they know your heart, but math doesn't lie, and neither should people. I forgive those who hurt me because that's what makes us better." David, inspired by his son's experience, announced the creation of a $100 million scholarship fund for gifted, minority children who might face similar prejudice. Sarah's racist actions had inadvertently sparked nationwide conversations about corporate bias, leading to systemic changes protecting countless children. The woman who tried to destroy a brilliant child's life ended up making the world better. For gifted kids everywhere, sometimes the universe delivers exactly the justice that evil deserves. If this story moved you, hit that like button and share it with others. Subscribe for more incredible stories of justice and triumph, because everyone deserves to see that truth and courage can overcome hatred and prejudice.